model, and then use that, the mental health services money to provide for the SELPA counselors and pay the cost associated with the SELPA counseling program. Some of our non-public schools have separate costs for counseling. Others have it incorporated into their tuition, their daily rate. So where they have it broken out and we can break that cost out, we'd like to use that mental health money to pay for those costs, as well as any non-public agency counseling services, parent reimbursements, student transportation, all of that. And those previously came out of the XPOT, so it would thereby reduce our cost to the XPOT. So again, that would reduce the district's share of those costs. We'd also like to take a look at taking the cost for clinical parent training and our parent project. Currently those are paid out of regional services money, and shift those over to this grant. And you know, because they really are counseling services, and parent training and counseling is one of the services that you can provide. And then because basically we have a number of staff who are currently funded out of the XPOT or regional services money that since last year have been spending a lot of their time on, you know, doing contracts for residential board and care, for going through invoices, doing all those support services. We'd like to reallocate some of those staff out to over into the mental health services. So those are basically quarters of a position or something, but just take those out of the XPOT or regional services, so that releases that money, and we now use the mental health. And then lastly, we would enter into an MOU to be able to expend the Prop 63 money. So the plan we're presenting is that we would like approval to hire 2 additional counselors, one of whom is experienced in residential assessment. And as I said, we went ahead in August and interviewed some potential candidates. We'll go ahead and bring them on for short-term contracts, and hopefully, you know, they will at some point in time become permanent members of our staff as we move forward. I feel like I'm planning for something that I'm not quite sure. It's kind of like Jell-O out there. And, you know, how many people do I need? You know. Also, we'd like permission to hire an office specialist who would provide support for the clinical counselors. Currently, Amy's secretary provides support for all of the due process, as well as the clinical counselors, as well as scheduling all of Anne's IEPs. And so we're looking at an office specialist who would do the support for the clinical counselors, and also schedule those IEPs for non-public school and residential placement. And then looking to reclassify the administrative assistant and fiscal analyst positions to office manager and consultant positions. This would bring them into alignment with the other 2 SELPAs as to where those positions are. And I do have to say that with all of this, both Karen and Catalina have taken on lots more responsibilities, and you know, it's always kind of their desk where anything left over lands on. So I think it is well deserved. We also have an office specialist who I've had to almost every year authorize additional days when we have our contracts and our individual service agreements. And so, you know, we'd like to just make her full-time because I'm paying it anyways. And then we'd like to look at leasing a mental health center. We have looked at the building across the way here. It was previously medical offices, so it is set up for privacy and also confidential record management. And if we bring 2 more people on, we don't really have any place for them to sit. every time I do bring on additional staff, I incur costs for phone lines, and those are being brought in on the sites. Unfortunately, those are usually portables that are the farthest from any place else on campus, and so I know, you know, when we went over to Adonia Merced, we had to go all the way under the playground. It was a horrendous expense just to get phones for these people. And so it probably would be better to have them in one place. Also, if we want to look at having services where we can bring parents in, we can bring families in, we can bring groups in, I think there would be a lot more we could do. Also, if we look at Medi-Cal billing, we will have to become approved as a Medi-Cal clinic in order to access that funding. So that's full scope Medi-Cal. Do you see it?
I'm just processing.
Like, okay.
Thinking, do we bill for that? We just had a meeting, so I'm still processing that.
So kind of those are the recommendations we're bringing forward for approval today. Looking at the fiscal impact. Oh, sorry, the whole big piece I forgot. Then we've gone ahead and done a budget related to these changes. And then, however, there would still be money left beyond what these services would cost. And so we'd want to allocate the remaining mental health services funding to either to the districts, or if the committee comes up with a regional service, it would come out of that pot of money, to pay for, either pre-referral things that you guys are already doing with your own staff, to pay for any additional mental health services. So let's say, we decide we want to hire somebody who's, or expand our staff so we can have groups that would deal with social anxiety, and, we would, probably, we could look at where those could best be located, but it would need to have a group of people coming together, probably parents and possibly teachers as part of that, so that it is effective and carried over in the home and classroom. So the recommendation is to develop a committee to develop a plan for these services. And also, we need to have some procedures on how we're going to document when we do provide services, because when we account for those from CDE, we want them to accept our documentation and not question spending. So basically, overall, just by removing the fee-for-service for clinical counseling services from the AB 602 funding model, we would be saving a little over $1 million. So that would be back in the pocket of the districts based on your usage, how much you used to pay for AB 3632. Individual counseling. Yeah, sorry. The proposed changes for staffing would reduce the ex-pot budget by $142,500 and the regional services budget by $48,000 plus some. And then the expenses for counseling, residential placement, support staff, facilities is projected to be $4.2 million. And that would leave $1.4 million to be allocated out for these additional mental health services, as well as pre-referral services, the kinds of things that you're already doing in your districts as you support kids from going into more restrictive services.
Can I add just one thing? And I think you talked about it a couple of times, but in the past, all of the districts received basically about $5.20 per ADA for your pre-referral mental health services. When those dollars went out to the district, there were no reporting requirements associated with that. So there was no specific documentation of how that has to be reported. With the new monies that are coming in, that pre-referral money is combined with the other Prop 98 money, so they all have the exact same requirements where we're going to need to report most likely the number of students and or the number of minutes and the dollars associated with that for each of those students. So that's just something to think about. I know when we talk about the finance people about that, but I just want to make sure you're aware of that change.
So Carolina, if I'm hearing you correctly, previously, because for your referral money, said $5 approximately per student, we didn't have any documentation. But if we split up this $1.4 million, there will be requirements.
Yes.
And you'll give us guidance on that.
We will hopefully get some guidance from the state that will tell us, yes, we will. It's not sure if we're going to be reporting quarterly, if we're going to be maybe biannual, and they're going to identify certain areas, and we don't know what that is yet. What we did with the federal piece this last year for 10-11, I went ahead and I submitted a report that showed the dollars that we spent, basically kind of per service, and then the number of students that were either being served and or the number of minutes that they were getting individual counseling from one of the agencies, because that's how we received the information, and or we identified the number of students that were AB 3632 that our counselors were serving, as well as the individual counseling. So it needed to match up. We submitted it just to see if it would work, and we got the blessings from CDE for that piece. So we don't know what the next piece is going to look like, but at this point in time, it was adequate documentation for what they wanted. We don't know what the specifics will be.
Right. And hopefully we can capture some of this through our SACE case-miss system, because I mean that is the database system we have in place. So you know, we may want to really look at how we're writing things on the IUP, so we are capturing those services. We don't want to have to go back through comments pages to identify services. That's just too labor intensive. And unfortunately, CDE is in the process of developing a work group, and they don't seem to understand that. The year is passing us by, but the same information you have here is kind of on chart form for people who are more visual. So, and then if you really want to get into more detail, we do have the proposed budget for the costs at the sample level, and I'm going to go ahead and let you go over this, Catalina. So.
Okay. What I basically did here was, if you look at on the far right side, it shows the FTEs and then the position title, number of days of the employees working, and the dollar amount associated with that, which includes your salaries and benefits. So the very top section there, where you've got the clinical counselors and the behavioral health counselors, those are our certificated staff. If you go to the next section, that is our classified staff. So we have the number of FTEs, so you can see what percentage of what person and the dollars associated with that. So this is how the mental health budget would look if we did the realignment of moving FTEs from regional services as well as the XPOT. So the dollar amount for those are the $898,000 and the $888,000. That shows the FTEs and the dollars amount associated with that. You take a look at the estimated self-expenses on the left there. It shows the certified salary benefits, the classified. And then what I did was I went ahead and I took a look at our fee-for-service budget, which was our 289 budget, and kind of took a look at that and made some adjustments that I knew that were going to happen, just even our IT fees and those kinds of things. So our 4,000s and 5,000s are reflected there. And then I have the building lease equipment, a dollar amount here. And this, again, these are estimates based on county office, what it costs at some of our other sites, basically at cost, for some of the expenses that we have. So I took into consideration lease, and I multiplied it by 9 months, looking at this on an annual basis. Utilities, pest control, all of everything that's listed there. So that's where we came up with $193,000. And then there's the estimated resident